Anybody know him to be worthy today? Now let me just do this. I'm going to have you take a seat here for a moment. Don't worry, we're not finished praising God yet. But there's a word that we kept singing over and over again. Hosanna. Hosanna. It's a powerful word, but in many ways it's also a loaded word. Because you could say that this word Hosanna is like two cries with one breath. In one sense, the cry of Hosanna is a cry for help. Hosanna, save now. When people would cry, Hosanna, it was an expectation that one is coming that is able to save us because I'm unable to save myself. And so Hosanna is a cry for deliverance. But it's not just a cry for help. Hosanna is also a cry of praise. It's an expression of gratitude for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and who he is and what he has done. Anybody in here know that God is worthy to be praised? And so this word Hosanna is the word that permeated the atmosphere as Jesus entered into Jerusalem on what we now know as Holy Week. And Holy Week is the week leading into when Jesus would ultimately give his life on the cross. He would die, be buried, but he would be raised back up to life again. And so today is Palm Sunday, which marks that day. And to get a little bit of understanding of this, I want to have us turn briefly to Mark chapter 11. This story is actually found in all the Gospels. But we've been spending quite a bit of time over the last few weeks looking at Mark chapter 8, chapter 9, chapter 10. And so today, as we look at Palm Sunday, I want us to look and see in Mark chapter 11 some of the events that surrounded this day. It says, as they approached Jerusalem at Bethphage and Bethany, near the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples. Now we know from Mark chapter 10, verse 32, that Jesus is now headed to Jerusalem because it's in Jerusalem that everything is going to now come to a head. As you continue reading in Mark chapter 10, verses 33 and 34, it lets us know what's going to happen to him. Jesus is going to be delivered into the hands of the Gentiles. He's going to be sentenced to death. And then he lets them know that he is going to be mocked. He is going to be spit on. Can you imagine that, spitting on the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords? He's going to be scourged, whipped so terribly that flesh would be ripped off of his back, and then he's going to be killed. But 3 days later, he's going to be raised back up to life. And all this is going to take place in Jerusalem, and it would seem that Jerusalem would not be the place that he would want to go. Anybody ever had to go to a place where you know that you weren't liked? Jesus was going to the very place where people wanted to kill him, and yet he was intent in going there because it was in Jerusalem that he was going to accomplish the greatest act. And so it lets us know now when we get to chapter 11 that Jesus is coming to Bethany and Bethphage, which are right on the outskirts of Jerusalem. But before he goes in, he has an assignment for a couple of his disciples. And I want us to look here in verses 2 through 6 of what Jesus tells them. He said to them, "Go into the village opposite you, and immediately as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, on which no one has yet ever sat. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' you say, 'The Lord has need of it.' And immediately he will send it back here." They went away and found a colt tied at the door outside in the street, and they untied it. Some of the bystanders were saying to them, "What are you doing untying the colt?" They spoke to them just as Jesus had told them, and they gave them permission. I like this part because Jesus is predicting what's going to happen. He's letting them know, listen, when you go here, there's going to be a colt tied there. I want you to untie it. Now, if you're a bystander, you see a random person grabbing somebody else's property, what are you going to do? You're going to, hey, what are you doing? So they asked the question, but what did Jesus tell his disciples to respond with? What are they supposed to say? Tell them what? The Lord has need of it. Jesus doesn't give any guarantees like, hey, let them know I'm going to bring their donkey back as good as new in 2 days. 3 days, really. It's going to take me 3 days to get up, but I'm going to bring it right back. He doesn't tell them, hey, you know what? You let me use this donkey, and I'm going to bless you with 100 donkeys. He makes no guarantee to them. He simply says, the Lord has need of it. I know this isn't the main point of the text, but can we just pause for a moment and just acknowledge that this is the type of attitude that we should all have? That if the Lord needs something, that all he has to say is, the Lord has need of it. You have talent, the Lord has need of it. You have connections, the Lord has need of it. You have resources, the Lord has need of it. This is the heart attitude of this disciple here. But let's continue to see what happens after they said, okay, well, he can have it. Verse 7, they brought the colt to Jesus and put their coats on it, and he sat on it. Jesus sits on this donkey that had never been sat on before. And this donkey is going to be the very vehicle that Jesus takes to enter into Jerusalem on Holy Week. Now, if Jesus came in with a horse, it would have been a powerful statement. It would have been basically telling them that there's a king that has now entered, but this king has come with power. He's come with might. He's come with the sword to dominate. But you know, Jesus didn't come on on a horse. I gave it away. Surprise. He came on a donkey. And the donkey signified that he was a king, but a different type of king. This would not be a king who, by force and dominance, would rule. This would be a king who would lead humbly and gently as a servant. You may remember in Mark chapter 10, verse 45, Jesus let him know that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And this was in fulfillment of the words that were spoken hundreds of years beforehand by a prophet by the name of Zechariah. In Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9, here's what it says. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout in triumph, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and endowed with salvation, humble and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And so now Jesus, in fulfillment of this prophetic word, sits on this donkey and he begins to enter into Jerusalem. And it's almost as if the excitement and anticipation was palpable. There was a sense of, there's something happening here in this moment that I don't want to miss. And I want us to continue back in Mark chapter 11. I want you to see what they say here in verses 8 through 10. And many spread their coats in the road, and others spread leafy branches which they had cut from the fields. Those leafy branches is why we call it Palm Sunday. That's why we call it that, because they took the branches and they laid these palms at the feet. It was a sign of honor and respect. And they continued. It says, those who went in front and those who followed were shouting, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Hosanna in the highest. You know, generations beforehand, there was a king named David. You may remember him, right? 1 Samuel, this is the king that defeated Goliath. Maybe if you watched the show, House of David. But this David was a great king. But as great as a king as he was, there was going to come a king after him to sit on his throne that was greater than him. In fact, if you were to look in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 16, there was a promise that God spoke to him through the prophet Nathan. And it said, your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Your throne shall be established forever. So the people of Israel, even though they were under the oppression of the Roman Empire, knew that one day from the lineage of David, there was going to come a king. And this king was going to set us free. He was going to save us. He was going to deliver us. So there's no wonder as Jesus was riding on a donkey and they had seen all the things that Jesus had done, that they began to piece things together. And so they began to quote from Psalm 118, verses 25 through 26. Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of our Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. And then they said this at the end. Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna in the highest. I want you to feel the anticipation of what they would have been in that moment. If you've ever been in a place where you've been unable to free yourself and you've been in bondage or you've been hurt and you've been broken, you can understand the urgency by which they said this. Hosanna in the highest. If you look in the book of Revelation, John, the disciple, gets a backstage pass, a sneak peek into heaven. And he sees something that he captures for us here in this moment. In Revelation 5, 11 and 12, here's what it says. Then I looked, and I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, and the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them was myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing. Sometimes I've wondered, what is it that the angels in heaven know that sometimes we are yet to realize? They are singing about how worthy the Lamb is. See, the same Jesus who rode into Jerusalem with shouts of praise, of Hosanna, would also stand before Pilate later on that week with shouts of Crucify Him. And this Jesus who didn't come to be served, but to serve, would give his life as a ransom for all. And he did for us what we were unable to do for ourselves. This God who became man lived the life that we were supposed to live. What kind of life is that? Hebrews 4:15 says, he was like us in all ways, yet without sin. But not only would he live the life that we were supposed to live, but he died the death that we were supposed to die in our place. See, when Jesus died, he not only died for us, but he died as us, which shows us the humility that this king had, that he would humble himself. And Philippians 2 reminds us that he became obedient even to the point of death, and death on a cross. But the story didn't end with Jesus dying on the cross. In a few days from now, we're going to have a Good Friday service here. And the only thing that makes Good Friday good is that Good Friday was not the end. Because on Sunday morning, the same Jesus who died was raised back up to life. And so when we sing worthy is the Lamb, we're singing worthy to the one who willingly laid his life down for us. We sing worthy to the one who did for us what we were unable to do for ourselves. See, there were those who saw Jesus coming in that weren't happy about it. In fact, many of them had learned how to live quite well off under the oppression of the enemy. And so their greatest hope was that there would not be someone to come and rock the boat. They wanted someone to help maintain the status quo. But for the very people that knew the pain and the pressure of being under subjection when they had no power to free themselves, and they knew what it was like to feel hopeless and despair at the very thought of the Messiah, the one who came from the lineage of David coming in, they couldn't contain themselves. They cried out, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father, David. Hosanna in the highest. So you remember that word Hosanna is two cries with one breath. It is a cry for help and deliverance, and it is a cry of praise. And I imagine that in this place right now, we have people that find themselves in a place where you look around and there's nothing and no one that can save. Your money can't save you. Your status can't save you. Your friends can't save you. Only God can save you. And so we too join with the chorus of those on the streets of Jerusalem saying, Hosanna, save now. We look at our world and there's so much brokenness and many people who are down and out and feel like they have been abandoned. And we cry out, Hosanna, save now. We look at those who have lost their life for the gospel, and many people have been tormented for the faith. And sometimes it's easier to throw in the towel and go back to Egypt. But we realize, God, there's no other hope but you, so we cry out, Hosanna, save now. And even at times when we look in the church, there are times in the church where those who are supposed to lead us towards God have actually led us away from God. And we find ourselves overwhelmed with the brokenness even in our own hearts and our own souls. And we realize that we cannot save ourselves. So we cry out too, Hosanna, save now. We look at our city and we see those who are hurting. See, for some kids, summer break is exciting because it means vacation. But for other kids, when summer comes, it means that I don't have a consistent meal. And it means that I got to live in an abusive situation. And many times we don't even know who those kids are. So we still cry out, Hosanna, save now. Some of us look at our own souls and we recognize, God, I can't get rid of this lust. I can't get rid of this fear. I can't get rid of this pride on my own. I've tried to white knuckle it. I've tried to make myself better. And my best attempts have not been able to save me. So God, I recognize that apart from you, I can do nothing. So my cry is Hosanna. So now we echo the words that we see here at the end of this chant, this chorus. As Jesus rode on a donkey into Jerusalem, we sing out, Hosanna to the highest. Hosanna to the highest. Hosanna to the highest. One more time.